Hi, you are watching Guiding Light with your brother in Christ and blogger, Bill Comilang. I'd like to share with you the marks of a good Christian. Mark means quality. It also means description and characteristic. The marks of a good Christian can also be termed as the qualities of a good Christian or the characteristics of a good Christian. The marks of a good Christian are embodied, represented by the name or term Christian, in which each letter represents one thing. Christian. Christian. The marks of a good Christian. For see, a good Christian is compassionate, mapagmalasakit, caring, nag-aalala, one that shows concern, nagpapakita ng pagmamalasakit, pag-alala, may pakialam sa iba, lalo na sa mga nangangailangan, sa mga taong dukha, sa mga taong malungkot, sa mga taong umiiyak, nasasaktan. A good Christian is compassionate, caring, one that shows concern. And a good Christian is Christ-centered. His life is centered on Jesus Christ. The hub of his life is Christ. Ang kanyang buhay ay umaikot kay Kristo. His thoughts, speech, attitudes, and actions are centered on Christ. His decisions are always centered on Christ. The marks of a good Christian. 8. A good Christian is humble. A humble Christian is not boastful. Hindi siya mayabang. Hindi mapagmataas. A humble Christian accepts faults. A good Christian forgives others. Ang taong mapagpakumbaba ay tumatanggap ng pagkakamali. At ang taong mapagpakumbaba ay nagbibigay ng kapatawaran sa mga tao. Humihingi sa kanya ng dispensa. That is another mark of a good Christian. Humble. Another mark of a good Christian is respectful. A good Christian is respectful. He respects authority in the home, in the family, in the community, in the street. He respects the authority of the traffic enforcer. He respects the authority of the presiding officer. A good Christian is respectful. He respects the authority in the government. He respects the authority in the church. He respects authority. Wherever he goes, wherever he goes, I repeat, and whatever he does, he respects authority. That is a good Christian. A good Christian is interested. Yes, another mark of a good Christian is interested. Interested to what? A good Christian is interested to spiritual matters like prayer, Bible reading, preaching, and teaching of God's Word. A good Christian is interested to Christian cause, interested to godly things, Christian projects, all things about Christ, all things about God, everything about the church. A good Christian is interested. Siya ay interesado sa mga makadiyos na bagay. Siya ay interesado sa dalangin, sa worship, pagsamba sa Diyos, sa pagbabasa ng salita ng Panginoon. Siya ay interesado sa mga mabubuting bagay na nagbibigay luwalhati sa Panginoon. Interesado ang Kristiyano mabuti sa mga bagay patungkol sa Diyos. Interested. A good Christian is sincere. He is loyal and or faithful to his relationship, to his profession. He or she is faithful to God. This Christian is dedicated and or committed in the workplace. A good Christian is sincere, tapat. Hindi siya nagsisinungaling, hindi siya nandadaya. He or she is sincere. 40. A good Christian is teachable. He or she is willing to be taught. Siya ay handang magpaturo. He or she is willing to be instructed. Siya ay handang tumanggap ng panuntunan, instruction, and he or she is willing to be corrected. Kahit pa sabihin natin na ang nag-correct sa kanya ay mas mababa kaysa sa kanyang posisyon. Halimbawa, siya ay chairman. Ang nag-correct sa kanya ay miyembro lamang ng kanyang gabinete, miyembro ng kanyang organisasyon. At siya ay leader. A good Christian is willing to be corrected, willing to be taught, because this Christian is teachable. A good Christian is inspiring. This Christian inspires people. He is a source of encouragement and motivation for people. This Christian inspires people by his or her words, speech. He or she inspires people by her or his attitudes and actions. And a good Christian is another for eye, illuminating, one that brightens, one that lightens up, one that sheds light. A good Christian is a source of light. Light. Yes. He is a source of light by her or his voice, speech, actions, and attitudes. He or she is a guiding light to others, a guiding light. Those are the marks of a good Christian. Another thing, a good Christian is affable or amiable, which means friendly. A good Christian is friendly. A good Christian is accepting, welcoming people. A good Christian does not reject people. A good Christian gives second chance to people. He embraces people who come to him and ask forgiveness. A good Christian is accepting, welcoming, and embracing Christian. And lastly, friend, a good Christian is nice. This Christian is kind, mabait. And this Christian is good, talagang mabuti. Mabuti sa kanyang pananalita, mabuti sa kanyang asal, pag-ugali, mabuti sa kanyang aksyon. Wala siyang masamang aksyon. And a good Christian is generous or nice. Hindi siya stingy. Hindi siya madamot. Siya ay madaling hingan. Liberal in giving. A good Christian is always choosing to do good. And a good Christian is departing from evil. When evil calls him to join an activity that is wrong against God's will, a good Christian departs from evil. Siya ay tumatakbo at naghanap ng exit para lumayo mula sa masama. Iyan ang mabuting Kristiyano. Psalm 34:14 says, depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. A good Christian is compassionate, caring, Christ-centered, and one that shows concern. A good Christian is humble. A good Christian is respectful. A good Christian is interested to spiritual matters. A good Christian is sincere. A good Christian is teachable. A good Christian is inspiring, illuminating. A good Christian is affable, amiable, accepting. And a good Christian is nice. He is good, generous. So you have just heard the marks of a good Christian. Concerning myself, these marks of a good Christian are my goals. I want to be a good Christian every day. Yes, this is my prayer to God. Lord, I want to be a good Christian. Help me to be a good Christian, Father. Help me to be a good Christian. Give me your grace and teach me to be a good Christian every day. I want to be a blessing to others. So help me, Father, to be a good Christian. Are you a good Christian? dear friend? Or do you desire, like me, to be a good Christian? If that is your desire, God will help you to be a good Christian. When God gives you circumstances, opportunities to be a good Christian, be a good Christian at all times. In all places, be a good Christian. Thank you for watching Guiding Light with your brother in Christ, William or Comilang. God bless.